The maid is about to drop a flower pot from the balcony onto the child. A spirit arrives and replaces the child with a doll, saving him, and pushes the maid off the balcony, throwing trash on her. The maid gets up and says, "I am not going to be scared of you. You will pay the price for interfering." At that very moment, the maid sees the child. The maid says, "This child is the source of income." She picks up the child and takes him away. A few minutes later, the maid ties the child with a rope and is about to dip him into a water tank. At that very moment, the spirit hooks the maid's clothes from behind and replaces the child with the maid, dipping her into the water tank. A woman arrives and says, "You are useless. You still haven't finished this child. What are you waiting for, wasting time?" The maid says, "This child is under the protection of some power that cannot be touched. It is some woman-like being. She has ruined my condition." The woman says, "I will give you a lot of money." The maid replies, "I value my life." The woman says, "You must complete the deal." The maid says, "Get rid of this child yourself. I am leaving." The maid goes away. The woman says, "Now I will have to do this with my own hands." Sitting next to the child, she says, "I have to take revenge for my son." On the other side, the grandmother is sleeping. The spirit comes in her dream and says, "Mother, save my child." The grandmother wakes up startled, hearing the sound of her grandson crying from the radio. She sees that someone has taken her grandson and left a doll in his place. The grandmother says, "I must find my grandson." A few minutes later, the woman puts the child inside a bag and throws it in the middle of the road, saying, "Now I have done justice." The woman hides in the bushes. At that very moment, the grandmother stops her car, picks up the bag lying in the middle of the road, opens it, and says, "Thank God I found my grandson." The woman tries to run away from the bushes, but the police arrive and say, "You are under arrest for attacking an innocent because this maid has told us everything." The maid once again sees the spirit. She runs away in fear. The policeman runs after the maid. The grandmother comes forward and says, "You tried to harm your grandson." The woman says, "This is not my grandson. Because of him, my son is in jail." The grandmother says, "He should be in jail. You don't know what he did to my daughter." Some time ago, the husband comes and says, "Why did you file a case against me?" The wife says, "You know your child is sick and I don't have money." The husband says, "If you want money, then come with me." The wife says, "Are you mad? I will not go with you." The husband pushes the wife and says, "You cannot get rid of me so easily." The wife's head hits a stone and she becomes unconscious. The husband runs away. The grandmother says, "In that accident, my daughter received a severe head injury and she died a few days later." The woman says, "No, my son cannot do this. You are lying." The grandmother says, "For a mother, her child always seems perfect. Your son has already taken my daughter's life. Now I don't want the same fate for my grandson." The woman says, "You are lying completely." At that very moment, the woman sees the spirit. This spirit is actually the child's mother, who has protected the child at every turn. The woman, cursing, runs after the spirit to catch her. The woman falls into a gorge.